Darien Porter is already turning heads at Raiders OTAs. Just a few days into offseason workouts, the Las Vegas Raiders opened the doors to the media, giving us a glimpse of early standout performers. One name that's getting attention? Rookie cornerback Darien Porter. Sources at the Raiders practice say Porter has been taking a surprising number of first-team reps. That's right. Despite being a rookie, he's been lining up with the starting defense. From all reports, he's holding his own. Observers were specifically watching how he performed alongside other corners, like Eric Stokes and Jacorian Bennett. While Bennett is still expected to be one of the starters, Porter has made a strong impression, especially in off-coverage situations, where his timing and break on the ball have stood out. To be clear, Porter hasn't made any splashy plays like interceptions, but he's been solid. He hasn't given up any big plays or touchdowns, and for a rookie, that's impressive. His discipline and awareness are already making waves. This early in the offseason, nothing is set in stone, but coaches often use these early lineups to test players they see long-term potential in. If Porter continues this trajectory, he could find himself in serious competition for a rotational role or more. Also worth noting, Eric Stokes has reportedly looked strong as well, and Bennett remains a key part of the secondary. At safety, Jeremy Chin seems to be playing in the box, while Isaiah Polamau is currently lined up as the free safety, although those spots could still shift before the season. 2 training camps ago, Bennett was in a similar position as Porter, thrown into a starting role early on. He didn't keep the job right away, but the coaching staff saw enough promise to give him the opportunity. The same might now be happening with Porter. Jacorian Bennett's early opportunity with the Raiders showed why the team had high hopes for him. After some rotation with other players, Bennett eventually earned his chance and performed well. That same upside is what makes this year interesting. Bennett could be primed for a breakout season, but what's grabbing attention right now is Darien Porter. The fact that he's already getting significant reps shows that the Raiders are serious about evaluating his potential. With the team shifting toward a heavier zone coverage scheme, Porter's skill set could be an ideal fit. He's reportedly a player PeteCarroll had a hand in selecting, which adds weight to the idea that he's seen as a long-term piece in this new defensive system. Now there's competition. Cameron Richardson, a 4th-round pick just last year, is also looking to develop in his 2nd season. But based on early signs, Porter might have the edge. Unless Richardson shows big growth heading into year 2, Porter could slide ahead on the depth chart. One thing to keep in mind, Porter didn't see a ton of playing time in college at Iowa State. He logged only around 700 total snaps in his career, which is low compared to some prospects who racked up that much in just one season. But the upside? He ran a blazing 4.3-second 40-yard dash, and he's got great length at 6 feet 3 inches. In zone coverage specifically, Pro Football Focus ranked him among the top corners in the nation, and his college tape supports that. It's still early in the offseason, but these are exactly the kinds of performances you hope to see from a rookie, especially one with limited college reps. If Porter were buried with the 3rd unit, that would be a concern. But the fact that he's working with the starters, that's a promising sign. Switching gears, there's another development worth noting on the offensive line. In a recent clip from practice, offensive linemen Dalton Wagner and Caleb Rogers executed a textbook zone block. The play appeared to be an outside zone run to the right. Even though it's early in camp, it gave a good look at how the unit is gelling. Here's the breakdown. Rogers, who's now getting reps at left guard, a surprise development, initiated contact with the defensive tackle. Wagner then took over and executed a clean cutoff block, even knocking the defender to the ground. It was a physical, effective rep that stood out. After making that initial block, Rogers moved upfield to pick up the linebacker, as is expected on the backside of a zone run. If that linebacker crashed into the backside gap, Rogers would likely stick with the defensive tackle. But his awareness to climb to the next level was exactly what coaches want to see. While these are just early OTA reps, this kind of execution on the line helps set the tone for training camp and beyond. As the linebacker flows over the top, Caleb Rogers makes the right read and peels off to block him. That's a great job by both Rogers and Wagner. Exactly what coaches want to see from a zone run concept. The key here is to stretch the defense horizontally. When the D linemen and linebackers are forced to run 5, 6, even 7 yards laterally, it creates natural cutback lanes. And if just one defender gets out of position, a guy like Aiden O'Connell or Zamir White could take that play to the house. In this particular instance, the defensive tackle ended up on the ground, and that opened up a clear cutback lane. It's a small moment, but one that shows how effective this scheme can be when executed correctly. Now, stepping back a bit, one of the more surprising developments out of OTAs is Caleb Rogers getting reps at left guard. Normally, for a veteran, shifting between left and right guard isn't a big deal. But for a rookie, learning a new position, especially switching from tackle in college to guard in the NFL, that's a major adjustment. According to someone who was at practice, it doesn't look like Dylan Parham has locked down the starting left guard spot. In fact, he believes Parham may be behind Alex Kappa in the pecking order. Kappa is likely locked in as the starting right guard, while the left guard position seems wide open. That's where things get interesting. Both Caleb Rogers and Jordan Meredith took snaps with the first-team offense during 11-on-11 drills. While Meredith had more reps overall, Rogers did get in there toward the end of practice. That alone shows that the coaching staff wants to see what he can do with the starters. Now here's something to think about. The Raiders drafted Caleb Rogers just one pick before Charles Grant. That wasn't an accident. It was a clear sign that they value Rogers slightly more. Draft order might not always tell the full story, but in many cases, it's a good indicator of how the team views a player's upside. It's not guaranteed that either Rogers or Grant will start this season. But if one of them does, odds are it'll be the player taken first. In this case, Rogers. Unless Grant clearly outperforms him, Rogers will have the upper hand. From the Raiders' perspective, left guard is the one spot on the offensive line that's truly up for grabs. They're not completely sold on Parham or Meredith, and they want to see if Rogers can step in and win that job. He played right tackle in college, so switching to guard and flipping to the left side is a big leap. But if he adapts well, he could take over the job outright. Also worth noting, Alex Kappa was handpicked by JohnSpytek, who worked with him previously in Tampa Bay. The Raiders gave Kappa a 2-year deal, showing they see him as a reliable short-term solution at right guard. But long-term, they're hoping Rogers can grow into a cornerstone on the left side. And to be honest, there's almost zero chance the Raiders bring Dylan Parham back after this season. That makes this left guard battle one of the most important to watch heading into camp. Now let's say Dylan Parham doesn't make the cut by the time final rosters are set. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. If Caleb Rogers looks solid and the Raiders like what they see from Jordan Meredith, Alex Kappa, and even some of the younger depth guys like Will Putnam, Parham could find himself on the outside looking in. The Raiders seem to genuinely believe that Caleb Rogers could take over the left guard spot at some point over the next 6 to 12 months. Whether that happens during training camp, early in the season, or later on, the team is clearly grooming him for that role. That's why they've already moved him from right tackle, his college position, to left guard. It's not a random switch. It's part of a plan. Now let's talk about Charles Grant. If he doesn't win the starting right tackle job, the Raiders might shift him inside to compete at right guard. If he shows he's better than Alex Kappa, and I think there's a real shot that he is, he could start there. Worst case scenario, Grant spends a year or two developing inside before potentially moving back to tackle. But either way, you're not going to see Grant and Rogers competing at the same position. They're on opposite sides of the line. All right, before we wrap this up, there's one more name you need to know. Lachlan Lockie Tosi, number 79. This dude is an absolute monster. 6'6.5", 350 pounds, with crazy athleticism for a guy his size. Originally, the Raiders listed him as a defensive tackle, and that's where everyone thought he'd play. But things changed quickly. Based on the video clips floating around and what I'm hearing from inside camp, Lockie's now being developed as a right guard. That's right. The Raiders are grooming him for the offensive line, specifically the interior, and mainly on the right side. He's raw, no doubt, but he has insane upside. Think of him as a potential Jordan Mailata-type project. Mailata came in through the International Pathway Program, sat and developed for a few years behind Jason Peters, and now he's one of the best left tackles in the league. That could be the long-term vision for Tosi. Whether or not Tosi sticks at guard remains to be seen. He's still learning the game and doesn't have much experience yet, but the Raiders clearly saw something on film. Probably his speed and movement skills for a 348-pounder. That made them say, let's try him on the offensive line. If you haven't seen Lockie Tosi's highlights yet, go watch them. For a guy that size, the way he moves is rare. That kind of raw athleticism is hard to teach, and that's why the Raiders are giving him a real shot. The Raiders are doing something really interesting with Lockie Tosi. They're officially transitioning him to the offensive line. And honestly, it makes sense. If there's one trait that's more important than anything else for an offensive lineman, especially a tackle, it's movement. Not size, not strength. It's how well you can move. Think about guys like Jackson Powers Johnson. What separates him from someone like Dylan Parham isn't just size or power, it's the way he moves at that size. Powers Johnson is quick, explosive, and smooth, and that kind of athleticism makes all the difference in today's game. Even when the Raiders drafted Colton Miller, the first thing people noticed wasn't his strength. It was how fast and fluid he moved for a guy that big. You just don't see 300-plus-pound athletes move like that very often. That's the same upside the Raiders might be seeing in Lockie Tosi. Now, of course, nothing is guaranteed. Tosi could easily flame out in a year or two. He's raw, still learning the position, and adjusting to the NFL game. But that's part of the story, and it's why I'm rooting for him. The Raiders clearly believe in his potential, and it'll be fun to see how far he can go. Let me show you a few shots from OTA footage. You've got number 72, that's Charles Grant, lined up next to number 60, Jackson Powers Johnson, and a couple other guys in the mix. Charles Grant definitely looks the part. He's huge, and next to a guy like Powers Johnson, who's already a massive presence, he holds his own. If you've seen that clip of Powers Johnson standing next to Ashton Jeanty, you know how big he is, and Charles Grant looks just as big, if not bigger. He might not be as thick as someone like Paris Johnson, but those long arms and tall frame, the guy is built to be an offensive tackle. 6 feet 5.5 inches with 35-inch arms. That's prototype size. Here are a few more shots. You've got number 84, that's one of the tight ends, and number 89, Brock Bowers. There's also a coach in the mix, but I'm not even sure who that is, to be honest. And of course, there's another cool shot of Tosi and Jeanty. Bottom line, there's a lot of excitement right now. And while it's still early, we're only in OTAS, this is where it starts. The process, the development, the battles, it all begins here in April. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Drop a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more updates. I'll catch you in the next one.